Welcome to the Tokenverse podcast series, where we interview the most inspiring minds to discuss the potential and future of Web3 technologies in the most disrupted fields, including the world of arts, gaming, governance, and economy. As in the words of the creator of Ethereum, Vitalik Buterin, now is the time to build on blockchain beyond decentralized finance. We are here to lead you through this paradigm shift by exploring the most groundbreaking trends and cutting-edge solutions. This production is brought to you by DoinGud, an NFT ecosystem focused on inspiring creativity and positive social impact for the world.
Hi, my name is Adrian Berthu. I'm head of crypto native comms at DoinGud, and this is Dan Kahan.
Hey, I'm Dan Kahn. I'm a freelance writer and journalist specializing in NFTs, DeFi, and the intersections of art and tech. I've been working with DoinGud since May, helping with content editing and writing. I've also staff written for The Defiant, and my articles have been featured on A16Z's NFT Canon.
So we're here today with Bruno of RMRK protocol. Bruno, would you like to introduce yourself? Give us a short intro, who you are, what do you do, how did you get into the space, that kind of first sentences, I suppose.
Yep, sure. My name is Bruno. I'm the founder of RMRK, and I used to be a web developer, then an Ethereum developer, then an Ethereum 2.0 developer. Then I worked on Kusama and Polkadot for a while with the Web3 Foundation. And at the Web3 Foundation, I started RMRK. And RMRK is, in a sentence, the most advanced NFT protocol in existence that we launched to kind of revamp the entire NFT space. So in order to really understand what it offers, you have to kind of unlearn what you know about NFTs, namely that they're just expensive images, and start thinking about them in a different way. And this is what we're doing by inventing the technology from the ground up to allow some really interesting things.
Cool. I'd like to dig back a little bit before we dive into RMRK, into what you were doing before. In maybe the Web2 space first?
Yeah.
Yes. Like, how do you get your start in this whole space? If you kind of just walk us through it real briefly.
Sure. I used to be a Web2 developer for a very long time. I actually started with Flash back in the day, then transitioned to just websites. And so what I did was, in somewhere around 2014, I data mined my happiness and realized that after looking at the stats, that JavaScript was making me miserable. And so at the same time, I encountered Ethereum for the first time. I don't remember how I got to the yellow paper, but I do know that I was immediately interested. And so I figured, okay, it's time for a change. So I quit all of my JavaScript contracts, and I focused the next year just on learning about Ethereum. And that's how I just, ended up in Web3.
When was it exactly?
2015.
Okay, cool. And then you became a Ethereum developer, like?
Yeah, I started working on Solidity, because Solidity was a really easy language to learn, and it allowed you to ship very, very quickly, to get from zero to something of an MVP in a very short amount of time. And I really like that fast, instant gratification kind of feedback loop. This is why I was doing web before and not low-level programming like C or something. Being able to see what you've done and release it to people immediately is only possible on the web. And this is why it was appealing to me. It's the same thing with Solidity. You deploy a contract and it's immediately available to the whole world forever. And this is really, really cool. And it was also really easy to learn. The fact that it was kind of a hacky language also helped, because I was raised in hacky languages. So I started with ActionScript in Flash, then JavaScript, then PHP with JavaScript, and then I just, graduated into Solidity. So it was a natural progression of hacky languages. And I felt right at home there. So I started developing smart contracts. I started developing for the ICO craze when everybody needed ICO contracts and crowdfunding modules and whatever else. I used to do that stuff. Then I audited some contracts for a little while. I still do periodically do an audit from time to time. And yeah, lots of Solidity, lots of coding there. And then later on, so that was the Ethereum era, but also as I was developing things, I was documenting everything. So every new thing I learned, I documented. I turned it into a tutorial of some kind. I did a long form or just a short snippet of here's what I learned, mainly for myself, because I found that often when Googling for a problem, I'll find my own solution from years back that I had no idea or no recollection that I wrote. And so the only way to remember stuff that I learned was actually to write about it and leave it online so that Google indexes it and so that I accidentally find it later. And this worked out really well in terms of getting me on the map with certain organizations that needed technical writers who could write tutorials and documentation. And so that's when Status hired me. They were hiring for a team which would ultimately work on Nimbus, which is the Ethereum 2.0 node for running Ethereum 2. And so I became their technical writer and worked with them for a year before moving on to the Web3 Foundation.
And then how did you get involved with Polkadot and Kusama?
I was approached by the Web3 Foundation for a job, and I just transitioned over. It wasn't any kind of switch of ideals. I'm still very much into Ethereum and use it daily. And it was just a new challenge. It was much more interesting. It was better pay. And I felt like I could use a change. I felt more at home, taking over some education on that front. And it just felt right. So I just transitioned. And over there, I learned about Polkadot, about the goal of all of this, about Kusama. And the more I was there, the more I liked the technology and where it was going and what it could do. And so I kind of joined the Kusama cult and started liking it very much.
And then at some point...
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, sorry, Adrian.
I was going to say you found your hacking background, like connecting back to what you were saying about JavaScript and ActionScript, with Kusama being like a bit of a playground for Polkadot, I suppose.
That was a big part of it. A chain that had economic value, but that was also built for chaos, felt really interesting. So the way that they advertised Kusama was it's a canary network for Polkadot. So anything goes on the canary network. You can build anything you want, even though it doesn't maybe make sense economically or architecturally or however else. And that's actually what RMRK is. It just doesn't make sense. It's a hack on top of Kusama, and yet it's become wildly successful. And so I don't think this would have been very possible in any other ecosystem, purely because I had to hack it onto Kusama. So if we were in an environment which had smart contracts and allowed us to do what we wanted to do, it would not have been as successful as it was in this case.
So I guess now would probably be a good time for you to explain to us a little bit more about RMRK. So what is RMRK? What is the goal of RMRK? Generally speaking, I think that would be good for our listeners to have.
Yeah. So RMRK lets you build NFT applications of any arbitrary complexity by combining 5 primitive basic NFT Legos that in any permutation can form a more complex system. But any user interface, any wallet, any application that supports the standard, that supports these 5 basic Lego primitives, automatically supports any permutation, any system built with those Legos, no matter how complex. In a nutshell, there are 5 standards, well, five kind of groups of standards that just really work well together. And they were built out of frustration with the current NFT market, where it's just one profile picture collection after another. You hire a guy on Fiverr for $100. He makes you a collection of like apes, punks, or whatever, penguins, marsupials, and you publish that on OpenSea or whatever. That sells out. It's popular for 5 minutes. Then the next one comes along. And so just purely out of this frustration of image-only projects, I felt like it was much like the ICO era of 2017. It was wasting the power of a globally programmable database. And I felt like NFTs could and should do more. And so if you unlearn the concept of an NFT as an expensive image and relearn it as any row of data that you can cryptographically prove that you own, and which can in turn own other rows of data, effectively becoming a relational database of sorts, then it kind of opens up a whole sphere of possible applications. And this is what we went for. And to kind of drive the point home, I tried to come up with the most kind of complex application you can build. And there's no software that's more complex than video games. It's harder to build a video game than it is to make a program that flies you to the moon. And so it's natural to try and compose it out of this system that we've created. And so this is what we did. Now, the challenge was that Kusama, being a layer 0 chain that connects other chains, is not meant to have logic on it, at least not arbitrary logic that lets users develop something like NFTs. And this is because it has to stay lightweight so that the other chains can talk through it. Otherwise, it would get bogged down in all of these other messages. And so without smart contracts, it's really hard to get logic onto a chain. So what we did was we used the concept of colored coins from Bitcoin back in the day, where you actually graffiti the block of the blockchain. So you send a nil value transaction, so a transaction that doesn't carry any monetary value, but it has like a string of words, just some content, some string content, some random values in there. So it's like a message, like a graffiti alongside a block. Now, in Kusama and in all substrate-based chains, Substrate is a framework for building chains, and Kusama, Polkadot, and all the other chains are based on it. In any substrate-based chain, that function is called the system remark function. And this is where remark got its name, from the remark function's name. The remark function is a non-state altering function, which means that whatever you submit into it, the blockchain itself is not altered. So you're not actually writing a change to the chain. You're only graffitiing the blocks from the outside. So it's like, you can imagine it like if you have a bunch of shipping containers, and every shipping container is one block that contains transactions. What remarks are doing is they're graffitiing the outside of that container. And so you're not putting anything into the container, but you can see the graffiti on top of the container. And you can extract it and you can interpret it in your own way. And this is what remark is. It's a set of standards that tells applications how to interpret that graffiti. So these are custom messages that you attach to blocks and that you then interpret in a custom way to get meaning out of them. If you had no idea what Morse code was and you just heard some beeps and some short and long beeps, you would think something's malfunctioning or there's a truck coming at you in reverse or whatever. But if you know Morse code, then you can implicitly read whatever you're hearing. And so this is similar to that. Like you have these graffiti that if you know the language of them, you can interpret what they mean. And by using these custom messages, this is how we get NFTs. So we use these messages to represent NFTs, and we use our specification, our standard, to read those messages and actually see the NFTs. So you're seeing something that isn't there because you know a secret language. And by doing that, we actually got NFTs onto the Kusama blockchain natively, so onto a chain that isn't supposed to have NFTs, purely because back when I started this in August of last year, there were no parachains and there was no way to add logic even connected to Kusama. Now there is, parachains have connected, but back then there wasn't. And I didn't want to miss out on the NFT craze that was starting to ramp up. And so it worked out fine. And we used this method to build these 5 basic NFT Legos, which are NFTs being able to own other NFTs and equip other NFTs. NFTs being able to have multiple resources, which means that you have an NFT that has different outputs depending on context. An ebook NFT has an audio file that will automatically play if you load it into Audible, and it has a PDF file that will automatically be readable if you load it into Kindle. And so those 2 media assets are part of one NFT that will decide what it loads based on the context it's being loaded in. We have on-chain emotes, which means that you can summon the emote keyboard and emote on anyone's NFT. So you can send reactions on-chain to people's NFTs, which is a great price discovery method because you can see that people are reacting to a certain piece of art. So it's relatively more valuable than others. And it's also a great gamification method where you can organize contests around it and where you can get people to socially interact with your NFTs. And then there's conditional rendering as a Lego, which lets you define small bits of logic. This uses a concept known as JSON logic. It lets you use small bits of logic that are essentially just if-thens, where you can influence the appearance or functionality of an NFT based on some on-chain information. For example, if I have a multi-resource NFT, which has a mountain, and that mountain is shown in sunny weather and it's warm and birds are flying around. And then this same NFT has an alternative resource that's a snowy mountain. I can say, so everybody who looks at that NFT in a marketplace will see the summer mountain because that's the primary resource. But I can say in the logic of that NFT, if this NFT gets more than 50 snow emojis, then switch the priority to the winter mode. And now you have the winter mountain. And so if you apply that to the nested NFT functionality from the first Lego, and you equip that image of a mountain as a background to an avatar, a character, then you can actually have a character who either lives in winter or summer based on the emotes that his background NFT got. And you get this composability where you can put these things together. So on-chain emotes, reacting to them, and then composing them all together. And so the 5th Lego is fractionalizing the NFTs, but not like turning it into fungible tokens, basically, to represent shared ownership, but not like in Ethereum where you use that exclusively for gambling. Instead here, because these NFTs can actually interact with each other and switch these priorities of resources and add new resources and get equipped, unequipped, sent into one another and so on, you as a community can decide whether or not that happens. So if you imagine some sort of Twitch streamer who's going on a raid in a game and their avatar is an NFT who owns a backpack NFT, which owns health potion NFTs, you as a community, if that avatar is tokenized into fungible tokens, then the community of viewers can actually collectively decide what that avatar is going to equip before the raid. And so now you have like interactive gaming streams through the blockchain.
I think it's so interesting how you basically you took inspiration from the oldest, most primitive form of, I mean, a lot of people wouldn't even call them NFTs, like colored coins, and have used that as inspiration to do what seems to be the most complex thing that's been done thus far with NFTs. I mean, I think that in and of itself is very cool. I'd like to, maybe you can go a little bit into the launch product for Canaria, because I think Canaria does such a great job illustrating all of these different functionalities. So would you maybe be able to walk us through what the Canaria flagship product is and how that mint and launch kind of worked?
Yeah, so to demonstrate these Legos, we wanted to have all of them together. So like just build a product that actually uses all of this so that it proves that that this is possible and it works. And yet the juxtaposition of like the super primitive NFTs with the most advanced NFT system is interesting. But also it's kind of not on purpose. We are right now rewriting the logic as palettes for runtimes of the chains that have committed to adding our logic to them, and also as smart contracts for the others. But that said, we decided to combine these Legos into this Canaria project, where you actually, as a way to fundraise for the team, rather than have an ICO sale, what we did was we launched a collection of digital eggs where people could claim them, buy them, and there were different tiers, whatever. And then they were supposed to emote on the eggs, and whatever emotes you got your egg would influence the type and functionality of the bird that would hatch from this egg, from its appearance all the way to the items that it got. So if you sent your bird 1,000 fire extinguishers, there's a good chance that it's going to be born with a fire extinguisher in its hand. If you send it a lot of zombie emojis, there's a good chance that it's going to actually have a zombie skin, or it's going to get a zombie background, and that's tradable with other people who can replace the background. And so this took a while. It was a long and arduous process, but we launched Canaria about a month and a half ago, and we only opened up sales a month ago, and I'm happy to say that it was received really well. Just that project, yeah, just that project alone did $6 million in volume in that month, and wow, the top sold bird was for $500,000. Wow. Already. And so these birds now, they are like your avatars that you can pimp out with some objects and items that you can buy on this item marketplace. But these items, these NFTs, they are not just for the birds. They are right now, because the birds are the only project that is running on RMRK 2. There are 3 in the pipeline that are going to happen soon, but the point is that these items that the birds have, they are fully standalone items. They can be viewed standalone. They have their own art standalone, but they have a secondary resource. So the secondary output that I mentioned, like their multi-resource, which is drawn specifically to fit on them when the NFT is equipped into them. And this is what gives the whole system its power, where you have infinite forward compatibility. If I have an NFT of a hat, that hat can be equipped onto a bird, or it can be viewed standalone. But as a new project launches, all we have to do is add a new resource to that hat that matches the new project in terms of being equipable on it, like visually, and that item will become equipable on that project. So you can reuse one NFT that you have right now in future projects that decide to be compatible with something that exists in the past. Which means that if 10 years from now somebody builds on-chain Minecraft, all you have to do is add a 3D resource to that same hat, and it will be equipable in the game, that same NFT. And so you basically prevent the fate of many other NFT projects where once the popularity dies, it's all done, and the NFTs just gather dust, like CryptoKitties do, for example. In this case, you can forever reuse those NFTs in a fully compatible way with any future project, by you or not by you, whether or not you know about it or are completely unfamiliar with it. And I think this is really powerful in this system.
This sounds like something that would have huge implications going forward in gaming specifically. Are you do you have background as a gamer, or as a game developer in any capacity?
No, I built some simple games in Flash, nothing fancy, but I did play my share of games. Yeah.
What do you like?
I grew up on story-rich RPGs, so
I'm a big RPG fan too.
Yeah, so that kind of, like, it makes sense. Like if you get if you play Baldur's Gate 2 and you get the talking sword item that wants to keep arguing with you, you kind of want to take that sword into other games. Now you can.
Yeah, so we're talking about this really allowing a possible future where you could do something like that, where you could have a game where all of your assets could then be taken into the next game and the next game and the next game ad infinitum, and kind of create an ongoing like database of like reusable items or characters or avatars. Do you think it would be possible to do something like this on a chain like Ethereum, or is it not? Is that not possible with how Ethereum?
Logically it's possible, and I am writing Solidity versions of all of these contracts, but economically it's not possible. These NFTs are made to be interacted with frequently, and Ethereum has two major problems. One is that everything you build on Ethereum, because it's a general purpose computer, everything you build on it is just another version of a spreadsheet. And in that spreadsheet with columns and rows, you just write different data. Now, NFTs are rows with a lot of columns for a lot of data, and this is why they're very expensive to interact with or mint. And if you have to frequently interact with something like that, it's going to get crazy expensive. Purely because there's no way to optimize for that information. There's no way to optimize for the NFT. There's no way to have a custom NFT structure beyond what's available in Solidity by default, which is fine because it's a general purpose computer, but it should not be used for this. It's already bad enough that if I buy a cup of coffee with Ether, and if I transport 7 trucks of gold, the same economic security is applied to both, right? So there are things that should not happen on the Ethereum mainnet, and NFTs are one of them. But the fact is that the EVM is always built as a general purpose computer, and this will be inefficient on any EVM. So even if you go to an EVM with 0 users, like Avalanche or some other chain that has absolutely no adoption and thus empty blocks, even there, the NFT interactions will become too expensive because it's just not optimized for storage. The other downside is that Ethereum has standards that, so ERC 721, ERC 1155, that people are very comfortable with and that make a lot of money for the current marketplaces. And now switching from those is very, very risky. To which standard do you switch? What do you do? Which customizations do you support? If you support these, should you support then all of the other ones? And so whatever custom thing you build on Ethereum for your NFT, your users depend on you and your custom UI to interact with this forever, because the marketplaces are always going to support only the lowest common denominator, and that's ERC 721. And we see this a lot, actually. Like if you look at, for example, if you look at loot, right? Loot is just a card with text as in terms of an NFT, but the contract itself actually has getters for the values that are written on the cards. If you check get head, you'll get the name of the helmet on your head. But on OpenSea, this is not represented in any way. It's just an image with text. And this is because this is a custom functionality added on top of this NFT's contract that OpenSea just does not support, because it would take customizing an entire platform just for that NFT. And this is because they started building on a simple standard like ERC 721 and then dug themselves into that. And now they can't really dig themselves out of it. So from that perspective, it's really hard to go beyond these ossified standards in Ethereum. Just a few months ago, I think even just 2 months ago, the standard for royalties. So royalties are not enforceable on chain at all, ever, cannot be. It's not possible. And so royalties are always optional, always up to the marketplace to apply. To apply royalties, there was a standard published, an upgrade to the current NFT standards, where you add 2 optional fields to an NFT that say who gets the royalty and how much. Adding these 2 fields, these 2 optional fields, took 3 years of discussion. So they took 3 years to merge these in, and the discussion continues to this day, because now people are coming out of the woodwork. Hey, I don't really like this. I'd like it this way and that way. And so the bureaucracy is breathtaking in Ethereum standards. And so trying to push ahead what we've built into any official channels there would just lead to a lot of bike shedding, a lot of talking, a lot of GitHub back and forth, a lot of arguing online, and no shipping. Whereas launching in a no smart contract, no standard zone like Kusama allowed us to iterate extremely quickly, ship several live products within 6 months, get serious volume, and be taken seriously by a lot of the ecosystem, purely because we didn't have these bureaucratic blockers, and because we could hack around any limitation. So we were like moving fast and breaking things, but legally where it was supposed to happen. So these are the two main downsides for EVM.
That makes sense. And I think everything you just said just kind of illustrates how early this whole space is, and how much room there is for growth. You had mentioned before, kind of jumping back, that you guys, that Canaria is like only the first thing, and that you guys have a few other things on the horizon. Are you able to talk at all, even broadly, on what some of those are?
Yeah, we have a metaverse planned where we're going to also go in the opposite direction of everybody else. Everybody seems to be trying to make a metaverse that's 3D and in the browser. And by doing that, you can, by definition, never have non-garbage graphics. So this is always going to look blocky, right? You're always going to max out at Minecraft level of graphics without RTX. So it's never going to look good. It'll approach early 2000 graphics as the 2020s move along, but to really impress, you have to. So we have two options to not be not have this suboptimal solution. One is we need to hire a full team to build a downloadable client and a real actual game that runs out of the browser. That's another company entirely. So that's not something that we want to do. That's too much to think about right now. And I don't think, honestly, it would have that much of an adoption, because people like to be able to just click into something.
Yeah.
And so because of that, we're going to be focusing on a more approachable isometric view, which is much more mobile friendly. So you can just jump in whenever you want. It'll be fast to load, fast to interact with. And if you just log out of it, you've logged out of it. There's nothing to save, nothing to clear cache about, nothing to, it can't get stuck. So you need to refresh your browser or whatever happens in Decentraland now and then. So we're going to be focusing on a simplified view that's much more understandable and approachable to non-gamers. So for casuals, and we'll be expanding this multiverse into a very, very rich tapestry of avatars, items, and everything else. And given that it's all going to share this multiverse, this metaverse, people are going to be able to reuse the NFTs from one collection in another collection, right? And so this is the overarching plan of the metaverse. And then we're planning to add, so the Canaria birds are going to be the first avatars in the game, and you will have to have some sort of avatar. But now that the floor of these birds is around 4 KSM, people are going to want something cheaper. And so for that, we will also have different collections of other types that can be implemented as avatars. For example, our core developer, Yuri, just recently demonstrated how to build your own RMRK 2 project. And he used some throwaway art that we made for for East Paris presentation a few months back. But now we've decided to actually, we're going to launch these as a collection for people. And in RMRK, you can actually, as the issuer of an art, you can pick which item collections are compatible with your art. And so you have control over who's going to be able to draw art for your stuff. And this is done in turn to prevent somebody from just drawing by Coca-Cola full screen ad and then put it on your max Z index, and then it's overwritten your ad, your art, right? So in Canaria, we whitelist collections one by one. for who's going to be able to equip items. Well, actually, which collection is going to be compatible with Canaria. But with the chunkies, this other project, we're just going to be we're just going to let it open for everybody so that they can go wild, and we'll see what happens with that. So we want to test it with the community, see what they come up with, how it works out. And then we also have partners that want to launch with us that also want to follow the same model. So build customizable, equipable ecosystems of items. And we also intend to make those mutually compatible.
That's super cool. You're really entering some, I think, areas of the NFT space that are very unexplored or just at the beginning of the exploration, that you can see like all this composability, and also somehow related to tokenomics. So I guess non-fungible tokenomics, which is totally unexplored. Like you mentioned, like right now we've got a lot of PFP projects, all pretty much using the same basic tokenomics, like 8,000 items, 10,000 items, whatever, like maybe a bunch of them going for the team, and that's about it.
Yep.
Did you, what stage are you into your research on that topic? Like what's, much like you was referring to ICOs and now the NFT eras being similar in the simplicity of the implementations of the smart contracts and just people using them as cash grabs, I suppose. We only starting to see tokenomics for non-fungible tokens rising slowly, and I don't know, maybe I guess in a couple of years' time it will be as complex as the tokenomics we have for fungible tokens.
Maybe. We haven't really researched into that too much, to be honest. There's like it's hype cycle driven. So what seems low right now, like the cash grabs of 8,000 avatars or whatever, might seem super high in a bear market because nobody's going to buy them. And it's kind of superfluous to focus on this too much, because it's not something that we want to think about too hard, because we think it's too quickly evolving, and we'll see where that goes. There's different methods for starting the sale and bonding curves and whatever. I think none of that makes sense. I think if you're like there are two forks in which you can go when you're building an NFT project. One is you want to make money, so then you're going to make the avatar somewhat expensive, or royalties very high, and a limited collection, and then you're going to hype it up with influencers and then pump that up, and you get money. In most cases, and that's how it works on Ethereum right now, this succeeds, and then the developers just go on to another project or shut down and just disappear. In the other direction, you have something like community building around this, and then slowly expanding the community as demand reaches it. So we have the Bored Ape Yacht Club example, where they had 10,000 apes, and then I think it was a year that passed. 1 year later, once they realized that the apes have become completely unapproachable to, like people with non-funny money, they added the Mutant Ape Yacht Club, where you got some potions for free and you were able to mutate your ape into mutants. And they expanded the collection, this access collection, to 30,000 by adding 20,000 new apes. And now they have 30,000 apes that are potential avatars for people. Now the mutant apes are also too expensive, so they're already flooring at around 6 Ether. Will they expand further? I don't know, but they were always billed as this exclusive club, so it makes sense that this is expensive. And then you have the concept of game-like NFTs, like loot, that is like kind of stunning in its simplicity and spawn a ton of forks. but then also because of these forks and airdrops for the original loot holders stopped being approachable as well. And again, it was 8,000 or something loot cards. And so then the developer made more loot. So another like a continuation of the project where you could actually mint more loot cards. So he diluted the supply somewhat and let more people in. These loot cards would be spawned in perpetuity. So like you could basically forever enter the game of loot. And then Andre from Yearn and Phantom, he took that concept, turned it on its head, and just created Rarity, which is a game of his on the Phantom blockchain, where you can just spawn new adventurers however many times you want. But adding value to them takes time. So you need to play them once per day, at least. You need to equip them. You need to go on adventures. You need to level them up, set up their stats, and so on. And so one way is to, increase the barrier of entry and then water it down as it becomes too unapproachable. The other way is just to have it completely open for everybody, but make it so that they have to invest some effort to kind of succeed in all of this. I like the latter approach, where you get exclusivity by belonging to these more expensive clubs, but you can always join as kind of like in Muggle mode, where if you have so for example, let's say the Metaverse of Canaria, you can enter this game if you have a Canaria bird. And now, obviously, some people have multiple birds. Some people have hundreds of birds. So by definition, you can't really have more than, 3,000 or 4,000 people in there, because there's like 3,000 or 4,000 holders of the birds. And that's a shame for somebody who wants to play but doesn't have a bird and can't afford one. So it would be silly to limit entry to only people with the birds. Now you can buy one of the other avatar projects that we have, or our partner projects and so on, but all of those might be too expensive. So what you do is you add a method of joining that visually shows you as lame, but allows you to play. And so you can have like a simple robot avatar that just looks generic, but you can use it in game, you can play around with it, but everybody knows that you don't belong to one of those exclusive clubs. It's similar to if you read the book Snow Crash, where the term metaverse is first mentioned and coined, actually. In that metaverse, people who join from public terminals, so low budget machines in public libraries and whatever, they appear in game as black and white, stuttery, low frame rate characters. Whereas others who have great machines at home, who have really powerful hardware and software, and who invested in their characters, they look like high fidelity, high resolution characters with epic items and so on. And so you make this differentiation. You allow exclusivity, but also open access to everybody else.
And do you think within that sort of system, it makes sense to give those, I guess, those Muggle players means by which they can upgrade?
Not directly. So you can't really, I wouldn't allow them to enter the exclusive club by performing in-game actions directly, like turn your robot into a canary bird, because that would
dilute
that would inflate the supply of the birds, and it would also be gameable. Like every game where you can achieve something by playing it will eventually become a Chinese farm, right? So there's going to be people in the basement farming that eventually.
Right.
So what you do is you kind of make it so that they have to do something meaningful in game and long term in order to earn some money, but also allow them some strategic decisions that will force them to play well in order to, again, earn some in-game money, resources, and whatever. Now, there's a luck element, of course, always involved. You can roll something and get a very rare item in some way. But it will always depend on your performance in game to earn enough items to sell, to then buy an actual club belonging avatar. And so the hope is that these Muggle players will play so much and so well that eventually they will get to 4 KSM or whatever is needed for the Canaria bird and just buy one if they want it. If they
Right.
don't, they can just keep playing as is.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so since we're kind of nearing the end of our allotted time, there are two other things I wanted to touch on. First, for people who are looking to kind of get involved in this, in building for this space, you guys are hosting a hackathon this month, right?
Oh yeah.
Can you talk a bit about that? Like what you guys are looking for, what you're hoping to see from that?
Yeah, so we are extremely desperate for developers. And so the hackathon has two purposes. By the way, it's a hackathon for both tech people and non-tech people. We also have non-tech categories for art,
Oh, cool.
a contest for designing an actual equipable item on the Canaria birds. And then
Very cool.
if you win that, you actually get a copy of that legendary item and the right to all future royalties from any sale of any copy of that item in perpetuity, which if you take into consideration that a rainbow colored legendary poop sold for $8,000, it's not bad.
So any artists listening right now might be a good opportunity to make some rainbow poop.
Yeah, make some rainbow poop.
Artists and what are the non-developer?
There's a wiki project that we want to build for Canaria so that it becomes much clearer for people. I forget what else we put in there, but it's in the description of the hackathon, so I encourage everybody to check it out. There's also a free-for-all category where you can just come up with something cool, and if we think it's cool enough, we'll score it. But you can also get in touch with us at any point to validate an idea. But on the tech side, like the community really wants more, for example, more analytics, more statistics tools, more rarity dashboards, and so on. And we are shipping the logic and stuff, and we just can't find the time to build that. So what we want with the hackathon is for people to create really impressive dashboards, stats, analyses, tools, helper tools, like a Discord bot that only lets you in if you have a certain bird or item on the bird or something. That's pretty cool. So we want people to build these helper tools and stats dashboards and whatever else, purely to help the community to make it that much more engaging. And we'll also gauge participants for approaching them for hiring. So we really want to use this as kind of maybe a way to hire some developers because we're really desperate for them. We really need more people. Like there's 3.5 developers on the team. They're all like burnt out to ash already.
Are you two of them?
No, I'm half of them. I've not been writing as much code as I wanted to. So the three guys are rock stars. Like I was real lucky to find them.
Yeah, I think everybody's in the same boat right now for dev. Like all the projects are really desperate.
So skeletal. Every team's a
skeleton.
Yep, everybody's running on fumes and just trying to patch everything together until they get more developers on board.
Yeah, so I mean, it sounds like if there's anybody interested in working on Remark, that there's a lot of opportunity there, and it sounds like it's a really cool space to be in right now.
Yeah.
You guys are really doing stuff that isn't being done elsewhere.
We'll put the video on YouTube and put everything in the descriptions with the links and so on. So just check the description on YouTube.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, we're looking for not just like the stats stuff and everything, but we also want to hire somebody to do Rust with us, to build the runtime logic, somebody to build Solidity with us, and then just React devs to build the UIs and the stats dashboards and improve our singular marketplace and improve the Canaria marketplace and everything.
Right. We're also looking at DoinGud.
Damn. Well, give us those that you don't need. If you need React devs, you can take them, but give us the Rust devs and the Solidity devs at least.
Oh, we don't need Rust devs.
There you go.
You take them.
All right.
We all need devs.
Yeah.
We need we need smart contract, like EVM devs. But anyway.
So yeah, so the last kind of broad question that I usually like to kind of close things out with is very broadly, considering how early we are in this space, where do you see things with NFTs going in the next, like, I don't know, 5 years? And I know that's kind of a hard question to answer, but
No, it's not. It's not. It's within 5 years, every NFT project in the world will be using Remark or a copy of it, because nothing else will just make sense. So it will just feel dumb, you know. It'll be like trying to write smart contracts on Bitcoin today. It's just nobody does that. Nobody wants to do that. So that's what's going to happen. What we are going to see is a proliferation of blockchain-based gaming, and not just because of this play-to-earn hype that's going on, which is also just temporary nonsense, just like the eco NFT and similar things, but more like because people will finally realize that A, they can own items from their games, and B, they will learn how to build user experiences that do not expose people to blockchains. And so when the first at least AA game comes out that has like fine graphics and is runnable on most platforms, but does not require people to have any crypto to interact or a wallet to interact with the game, that's going to be the real like explosion of things. So something like Axie, but maybe more mainstream. Axie's on a good road there. It might be them. Like they're almost ready to overtake Blizzard by market cap, which is also ridiculous. So I think blockchain gaming is where it's at. You see a lot of celebrities, a lot of plans for TV show and movie related NFTs. That's all fine, but ultimately it all distills to the same thing as it always did. It's just a reference to an image somewhere or a reference to a movie somewhere. That's the current NFTs on Ethereum. Where things are going to go is in blockchain gaming, and once these games actually start to connect, which, if I'm not mistaken, was the dream of Engine all those years back. So Engine is the Ethereum protocol that tried to do this portability of items across universes, but they kind of boxed themselves into the standard that they made. So once this really comes to fruition, once the games start trading items, and once you can really own a thing, and once, you know, like in the future, you can just walk up to a conference at BlizzCon with an axe from Warcraft 1, even though the game no longer exists, and you have a real collectible on your hands, that's when people are going to notice.
I think there's something there. I think you're right about that. It's super interesting. Well, thanks for taking the time to chat with us, Bruno. This has been a great chat.
Sure, my pleasure.
Yeah, we'll see you at the next conference, or somewhere else in the Metaverse.
Indeed. Join us in the Canaria Metaverse. It's about to be very, very fun in 2022.
Nice. Looking forward to that.
All right. Well, check us out at remark.app. But more than anything, check out the hackathon. We need you to join us in hacking.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
See ya.